Come along with me, guys. Today I'm going out and I'm gonna go check on some bulls and see if they're dropping sheds. More of a scouting mission than anything. We're gonna do a little video about scouting and how to scout for sheds. It's not something that I've done a lot of. I'm a newbie at this shed hunting thing in the past couple years, and I'm learning a lot that scouting pays off. So I'm gonna show you on OnX how I go about it, and we're gonna see if we can find some bulls. So stay tuned. Let's get after it. Let's get going. I'm going to share my screen here and we're going to look at how I do OnX and use OnX to scout for these elk sheds and try to figure out and narrow down these areas where I think these sheds are going to be and where I'm going to go look once the time comes. So without further ado, let's get after it. So here we are. Here's the precious OnX account. Don't look too hard. I've never been here before. For hunting purposes. So if you're trying to steal any of my spots, good luck, because you can't. And disclaimer, I don't know anything. I'm only telling you what I have found out from my own experiences, what I have found works and what has helped me. So I am not a pro. I don't know anything besides what I have learned in the field. So you cannot sue me for giving you bad info, or if you decide to go to this area and there isn't anything there, like I'm telling you there might be, you cannot sue me. So have fun. So with that said, let's get into it. We're going to just talk over a few of these layers and just how I kind of narrow it down. Let's go over a little overview of what these elk are doing in time frame. My scouting season starts in February and goes through March, really. Later March, some of the bigger bulls will have dropped, and but 90% usually are still carrying their sheds. So I won't really look for sheds more so till late April, because I'm a little anxious, or late March. I think I said that. I don't know what I said. Until and then April, all of April, I'll look. Because, and into May, I'll look into May too. But because most sheds just won't drop until in between that April 1st till April 15th-ish mark. And it just depends on the year too. It depends on how much pressure on these elk and how much stress they're under when they're going to drop it. And it's never the exact same every year. It's just kind of the same year round time frame. So that's why we have to do this scouting, so we can figure out what areas these elk are in during that time that they shed their antlers, so that we can go in there and pick them all up. So the first layer that we're going to go over is this elk distribution layer. If you can see my mouse, we've got the summer range highlighted in this pink area, and the blue outline shows the wintering area. So in my mind, that tells me that in between this blue line and this red line is a wintering area of this ridge, of this mountain range here. So that's where I'm going to most likely find these bulls, is in that area. And that helps, really helps, goes from a map this big to a map this big. And that's what we're really trying to do, is just narrow our search down to these smaller areas that we're going to hit, and just increase our chances of finding these bulls before we actually get out and get boots on the ground or drive around out there and look. The next thing that I look for is just this public land. I'll turn on all my different public land and layers that they have here on OnX. We've got our Forest Service here. Looks like we have some BLM here. We've got block management here in the red. And then we've got the private land boundaries here as well. And those are going to be helpful. A little bit about this red block management area, if it's red like this and it's not black with red dots in it, usually means this time of the year it is prohibited. Usually means they don't want anybody on there. There might be some exceptions. I don't know. You'd have to talk to the landowner, but it's private land, not public land. It's private land that they allow the public to use during certain times of the years under certain regulations. So check those regulations before you go anywhere on these properties, or talk to the landowner before, because it is their property. It is not the property of any of us. You can also get permission for private land, and a lot of time that's where most of the critters are. It's what this transition range right here that they like to hang out in during this time of the year. That's where a lot of these critters are in this type of country. They have easy access, especially the cows. They have easy access to these ag fields down here that they can just chow down on, and then have protection because they're not pressured by humans during this time of the year, unless there's some shoulder hunts or something going on. But apart from that, there's this wildlife management area here too. And if you see one of these in one of your areas that you're scouting, you can guarantee that there's probably some wintering elk there. That's why they kind of have these areas. They're usually wintering areas where a bunch of elk will go and a bunch of elk will shed there. And but the problem is May 15th is when these things open up. The wildlife management areas are off limits to go onto until May 15th. I think that's for most of them. There may be some different ones, but so I would check that for the specific one before you get on it and go to jail. But those are also a cool source. If you want to be a part of that whole madness on May 15th when they open up, a lot of people just surround the thing. And when the time goes, people are just running as fast as they can and picking up sheds as fast as they can. There's a lot of sheds, but there's a lot of people usually on these. And it's really hard to actually pick some up unless you just get lucky and you run the right line. And when I say run, I mean run, because you're trying to outrace horses and dirt bikes and all sorts of stuff a lot of times. So just know that'll tell you if there's wintering elk in the area pretty confidently. Another thing that is super helpful is just knowing access. These motorized roads and trail layer that I have on, it'll tell you about these certain roads. You can click on them, what vehicles can be accessed by them. So you can see high clearance right here, 4x4 vehicles or side-by-sides for this little jaunt right there. And these access roads probably during this time of the year won't be open. Some of them might be. I doubt they maintain a lot of these during the winter time. So even if it tells you what you can use to drive on them, it's not a guarantee that you're going to be able to do that. A lot of the times, though, you can go back here on snowcats or four-wheelers or side-by-sides with tracks or something like that, and you can still use them to access this country, but it's just not going to be drivable, especially the ones way up here up high. The roads that you're going to be driving around and using for scouting are down here in the flats, primarily on these bigger highways, like this green boundaries covering up a highway, I think. But pull-offs and stuff like that, where you can pull off, like say right here, and look up at this open hillside and see if there's elk. And so that's kind of my process. I use these little things to kind of narrow down special spots. I'll mark them. My system is to mark with a black marker, black X, and I'll just say like, all right, potential for this. And then I'll put boots on the ground. And when I get there, and if I see something, then I'll put a red marker. Actually, I just changed my system up. So I'll put yellow. My yellow is shed hunting. I'll put a yellow marker. That means I have found something. I know something about it. That marker is set in stone because I actually have information tied to it. And so I will go in and I will mark a spot like this at a waypoint. And then we'll go, we'll go down to the elk one, elk, and then we'll go down to colors, yellow. And then I'll say something like saw big bull, saw 5 big bulls. And it does the point for me. It marks what the date was of this point for me. So I just click in there. I know on this date at this time, I saw 5 big bulls during the shed season right here. So that's how I use OnX to kind of mark these areas. And a lot of this happens when my process is I do this e-scouting here online. I find these areas with the black, I mark them up. Then I go get in my pickup, get a lot of snacks, and I drive around using my binoculars around the bases of this mountain range here. And I glass everything I can, even if it's midday. I'll usually go in the mornings or the evenings, or I'll just go all day if I have time. And I'll just look and I'll pick out the spots where these bulls are hanging out, and I'll put those yellow marks down. And I'll pick up all this information and figure it out. And once I go there once, I have kind of an idea of the roads I can drive, of the access points I have, where some of the elk are. And then I'll just go in there time after time again from February through March. And if I can't see elk from the road, then sometimes I'll have to you'll have to hike back in or get on 4-wheelers or snowcats and get back on these roads. Maybe you find some better looking stuff way back in here that's less accessible, but there's going to be bulls back in there. Like maybe this burn right here has bulls that winter there. And you have to get back in there somehow. And maybe you go way up, find a ridge point like up in here that you can hike up to, and you can glass. And then you figure out where all the bulls are coming out, where they're hanging out, where they're living in there without bumping them. And that's going to help you to just narrow down these areas where you're going to be able to go in once the sheds drop. Once you start seeing them come off during your scouting season, you're going to have a better idea for when to go in there. So you're not bumping them out of there so that there's more sheds on the ground. That's one of the biggest mistakes that I have seen as I've started shed hunting these last couple of years is guys are too excited. They're so excited. And some of them just don't know. They just don't think about the process and the time of the year that these elk are in and what they're doing. And so they go into these spots where these bulls are. Maybe they pick the right spot, but the bulls haven't shed yet. Or maybe one has. Maybe the big one has, but there's 10 more that haven't shed at all. So you're not going to find any of those sheds because you're going to spook that whole herd of bulls out of there. They're going to go somewhere else and they're going to shed somewhere else. So if you wait long enough for the whole group to shed, your chances of finding sheds and in quantity are going to be a lot more. So that's just a tip. That's one thing that I've noticed a lot of guys do. They go in way too early and they spook elk out of the area before they should. And you will find a lot more sheds and a lot better sheds if you do that. If you don't go in there and spook these elk out of there. So that's just kind of a brief little overview of the things I kind of do for shed hunting. I'm going to show you some B-roll here of some more of my findings from this year. I found some incredible stuff using this year. I found a hillside full of 300 plus bull elk this year. There's some of my tips, some of my just rants about shed hunting and some things that have helped me be a little bit more successful over these last few years. So I just want to thank you so much for listening, for watching, and enjoy some of these last few clips. There's some pretty amazing stuff that I was able to find. So thank you. We've got snacks, we've got glass, we've got transportation. We're gonna go see if we can find any bulls, see if they've dropped. Let's go.